I'm going to show you how to create a macOS application using SwiftUI. Now, the twist of this video is going to show you how to manage app lifecycles in SwiftUI for macOS versions 11 and newer, as well as being able to target devices with earlier versions of macOS. Now, as you may notice, that SwiftUI was introduced to Mac in versions 10.15, which is Mac Catalina. But since that time to now, there have been significant changes. So if you was to create a brand new SwiftUI application, you would be presented with a file structure similar to this here. You would have your application. I call this the application's main file. And then you would also have a content view. This is where you would kind of set up like what you want the application to show. So let's go back to what I call the application main file here. And looking at this file here, you would see, of course, we're importing SwiftUI because, of course, we're using SwiftUI. But then below that, you will see where we have this at main. Now that at main there, it actually tells the compiler, hey, this is the entry point for this application. Then, of course, we have our struct, which kind of just sets up the rest of the app life cycle, where we have like the window groups. And, of course, in that window group, we have the content view. So now if we was to run this, it should run successfully without any issues. As you can see, it has built successfully and the application should launch shortly. All right, so here you can see we have our application window. And here inside of it, it shows the hello world, which is the content that was inside of the content view. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to stop this here. All right, so this here is the default structure that Apple provides us in Xcode to creating a SwiftUI application. But now let's say that we want to target some older versions of macOS. We can simply do that simply by going here to the application here, and then we can select the target. And then the minimal development, we see here we have Mac OS. It's set by default 13.3. Now this can change later, but for now what I'm going to do is I want to target Mac OS versions 10.15. This here is when SwiftUI was introduced to the OS. Now that is simple, right? We can just go here and we can just run the application and it should build. But no, that does not happen. We see that some things have failed. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go here and we're going to see what failed here. One, we can see here when we go over to what I call the main part of our actual application, you will see here that it says that main is it says at main is only available for Mac OS 11 and newer. And the same thing goes for Scene and WindowGroup. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to show you how to address this issue so that you're able to use SwiftUI and target the older versions of Mac OS, starting from 10.15. All right, so to get started, the first thing that we need to do is we need to remove the at main. And we will do that by simply hitting delete. And now, as you may guess, how did this application know that where's the main entry point to the actual application now? There's no add main. Well, we can luckily still utilize what the methods before, which was in Mac, I believe Mac Catalina, called the main.swift. So we're going to go ahead and we're going to create a file here. It's going to be a Swift file, and we're going to call this main. And of course, this is going to be a main.swift, and we'll go ahead and hit create. And once we hit create, we will be presented with this content here, which is the default content. I'm going to paste in this content here that I have already pre-prepared. All right, so the first thing that we need to do is we need to take and we need to import AppKit. And then we need to, let's see here. Then we need to take and we need to create a if available statement. And we need to check to see if the app is on versions iOS 11 and newer. And if not, we need to perform some other actions here. So as you can see here, inside of our main app, I'm going to just copy this struct here, and I'm going to go back to the main, and I'm just going to say my app dot main. Okay, so this is the equivalent of saying, for an example, main. Okay, so that's what this does here. Now, basically what we're saying here is if the Mac OS version is 11 and newer, then we just want to simply run my demo app dot main as the entry point. Okay. Else, what I want to do is I want to run my app using the app delegate. Now, of course, we need to create this delegate, which will take care of this issue here. And again, I have pre-prepared some content here. And so I'm going to go right over here to the main part of my app. And then I'm going to come down. I'm going to paste this in. This is what I would call your app delegate. Now, or let's say that you create a storyboard project, it's going to come with a app delegate. So with SwiftUI, it does not by default come with an app delegate anymore. It used to back in Mac Catalina, but since of now, Mac OS, I believe, maybe 11, it stopped including the app delegate in SwiftUI files. That's why we have the at main. So here, as you can see, we have an app delegate. It is of a NS object and a NS application delegate. And then basically we're creating a window here. And then of course, this is your standard default application did finish launching. You can also add, if you need to, you can add in your application did finish launching with options. But this is where you would set up your window. Okay, so now as you notice here, I have my window here, and then I came on down and I set up a NS hosting view, which is this line right here. What NS hosting view allows you to do, it allows you to take a SwiftUI view and use it as the root view. So what I've did is I took that view there of the content view, the same view that is used up here is used in this app delegate. Okay, and that is this view here. So this is what we're using. Okay, so that is the actual content view there. Now we have a few more problems that we need to address. So as you can see now, this is the method that I want to utilize when I'm on Mac OS versions above 11 and above. And then I want to use my app delegate whenever I'm targeting versions of Mac OS that is less than 11, such as Catalina. Now, of course, you know, you can still, this app delegate here still can work with the new versions of SwiftUI. Like say if there's some things that you need to include, you can still include those things into the SwiftUI from your app delegate. You have to set up an adapter. That is something for another video, but this is simply just show you how you can get the project started. Okay, so let's address these issues here. If I click here, it says, of course, that Scene is only available in Mac OS 11 and newer. I just want to add the available to the actual struct. So we'll hit fix here. Actually, no, it added in the wrong spot. Let's go here and let's cut that out. And let's put it here above the struct here. So basically what it's saying is this struct right here will be completely ignored if the system is not running this version of Mac OS. Okay. All right. So now we have addressed those issues, and this is the main entry point. As you can see, if we just wait a second here, it's going to find the app delegate. Now, again, we're running this here as, the main file. We're running that struct if we're on Mac OS 11 and newer. And then if not, we're telling it to run from the app delegate. Okay. So you see there's no issues here now. And back to the main file, there's no issues. But we have one more thing that we have to address before we can actually use this. Let's go to the content view. Now, content view, this is the default. This is what Apple provides us by default. You may not have this issue right here if you're going to create your own content view, but because we're using the default content view, of course, we have to make some changes. And basically, as you can read here, it's basically telling us this init system name is only available in Mac OS version 11 and newer. I don't want to put an availability on none of this stuff here. Basically, all we have to do is just remove the system name like so. Let's take that extra space out. And when we do, it should take out that error there. And of course, this modifier is not available on iOS targeting Mac OS 10.15. So we would need to move that modifier. That modifier is removed. And that right there should take care of pretty much everything. You just have to keep in mind that whatever you use, it has to be available in Mac Catalina. Now, let's say, for instance, if it's not available in Mac Catalina, how do we address that issue? Well, let me kind of just go back a little bit here. Now, if it's not available for Mac Catalina and you get this here, of course, you have this that you can add. And as you can see, it added availability on all of this, but we don't want that. But we can go here. And I believe, we can just come here and we can say if, and we'll close that if like that here. So now if we're on this version of Mac OS, we can see this image like so. Else here, we won't see it at all. You can also use an else statement, and you can show something different if you would like to. For an example, we can do it like this here, where we can just pull out the parts that does not work. All right, pardon me. So yeah, the parts that don't work, we can just scoot those on out, right? And now, whenever I am on a version Mac 11, I can see this here. And if not, I will just see it like that. Okay, let's go ahead and run this to see if it works. As you can see that it's successfully built, and here now you can see this right here is running off the lifecycle method that we created here. It's running off this lifecycle method and this struct right here. Okay, now on an older system, it would be running off of this here. Now, I know that your question is probably, how do we know that it's going to work on a older version of Mac? Well, I can prove that to you. Okay, let's go here. We'll stop it. Let's go back to our main. Now, pretty sure earlier you saw me do something weird where you saw like a 19 here. It was weird. For an older version, let's just say that we know there's no version 19 available yet, right? So I'm just changing this to 19 to make it easy. There is no version of Mac OS 19 that is available. So this right here could not run if it wanted to. So our machine is not running version Mac OS 19. So we should run off of this. So if I hit play, as you can see, it has built successfully. Now, as you can see, this is our window. much smaller window because we don't have a nice window size here. We need to edit the this here to give us a better sizing here. But as you can see here, that we're able to run SwiftUI with different life cycles. The trick of this thing is to simply create a to take out the main from this struct here, because this will only be the starting point only when these conditions are met. We also need to add an availability to check that we're on iOS 11 so that we don't get any issues at all with the scene and the window group. Then we also need to create an app delegate, and we need to create our windows there. You can also create a scene delegate, but you're going to have to do some things inside of your info.plist. Then from there, of course, you need to modify the content view that is going to be available for the iOS that you're trying to target, okay? And then the last piece of the puzzle is to create the main file. This main file is a main.swift, and this basically this is where the actual application is going to start, and we allow it to determine if it's going to show the struct view, lifecycle, or the lifecycle coming from the app delegate. I hope this video helps. Please leave a like and a thumbs up if you would like to see more content.